to Miss Craig's classroom. Today in maths we are going to be looking at two-digit numbers. Our learning goal is I am learning about numbers, and our success criteria is I will be successful when I can identify and read two-digit numbers. Now, before we begin looking at two-digit numbers, we first of all have to review what a digit is. Now, a digit is a number from 0 to 9, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Together, these numerals make up numbers. So, for example, the number 4. How many digits does the number 4 have? If you said one digit, you are correct. Next, what about the number 210? How many digits does this number have? If you said 3 digits, you are correct. What about the number 67? The number 67 has 2 digits. And lastly, the number 538. How many digits does this number have? If you said 3, you are correct. Now we know what a digit is and that digits make up numbers, we can start looking at two-digit numbers specifically. As you can see here, I've begun a place value chart. Now, a place value chart is something that you will probably see in your primary school education the whole way through. So we always start our place value chart with a ones column. Now, the ones column refers to those single-digit numbers that we just discussed. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. However, you can see that when we get to the number 10, we have to move into the next column, which is called the tens column. Now, this column is for our two-digit numbers. So, for example, the number 10 has 1 10 and no ones. The number 11 has 1 10 and 1 ones. The number 12 has 1 10 and 2 ones. I think to explain this really clearly, we have to create our own hundreds chart. Let's do it.
Alright, I've already made my hundreds chart, but you will notice that I have 10 columns at the top and 10 rows down the side. This will give you 100 squares or 10 by 10. I'm going to begin by first of all putting in those single digit numbers 0 to 9 in the top row. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because these single digit numbers are the basis of all the other numbers that will follow them. So after I've done the number 9, I will then move on to the number 10. So you can see that each row follows on from the one before it. Now I'm going to use my single digit row to help me count by tens down my first column. 1 is the first numeral after 0, and then 2, and then 3, and so on. That is why 10 is before 20, 20, and that is before 30, 30, 40, 40, 50, 50. If you can see, there is that specific number pattern repeating itself, except this time we just have a 0 on the end. Just to make this repeating process really clear, I'm once again going through and underlining those first single digit numbers and how they then relate to the first digit of our tens numbers. Now it is basically a copying and repeating game. So all of the numbers in this row going across from left to right will start with the number 1, and the second digit will be the same as the one above it. Now when I'm writing my second row of numbers, they will all begin with the 2, but the second digit will still follow that same pattern. Now, if you ever get stuck, don't forget to look at the numbers that have come before it and then the numbers that have come above it. This will really help you figure out what your missing number is. You may have noticed that I have started to include labels next to each row of 10. These are the names of the digit they are sitting beside, but are also included in the name of every number in that particular row. When we move from single-digit numbers to double-digit numbers, students often begin to say these numbers like 5 and 7 instead of 57. To say these numbers, I want you to say the white word first and then simply the second digit of that number. So instead of 7 and 1, we are going to say 71. We'll have a practice when we've finished filling in our hundreds chart. Alright, now we're going to practice saying these numbers. So the first one we're looking at is a 4 and an 8 circled. So I'm going to look at the word 40 and the second digit 8. So together it would be 48. The next number circled is an 8 and a 5. So I'm going to look at the word 80 and the second digit 5. So together that number is 85. I want you to try this one by yourself. It is a 2 and a 2 circled, but we know that that's not the right number, so what is it? If you said 22, you are correct. The exception to this is the teens numbers, which is the first row of numbers after the single digit numbers. They play by their own rules. Instead of saying the blue word first, we say the phrase teen at the end. However, some numbers, like the first two, 11 and 12, do not follow this rule at all. Let's have a look at them. That first number again is 11, which isn't a 1 teen, it is 11. The number after that is 12, so it's not a 2 teen. My students know I hate these numbers. Next one is 13 for third, and teen, 4, 14. 5 is actually 15, spelled with an F. 16, 17, 18, and lastly, 19. In my opinion, these teens numbers are the hardest two-digit numbers that we have, so I suggest that you do a lot of practice on these ones at home.
Now we have filled in our hundreds chart, it's time to look at some of those activities that you can do at home to practice your two-digit numbers.
Alright, the first way you can practice reading your two-digit numbers is by using dice. What I want you to do is roll a dice twice to give you a two-digit number. So the first digit I rolled was a 4, the second was a 1. Altogether, that number is 41. Now I am rolling another number. The first digit is a 1, the second is a 2. Now I know this is one of those cheeky teens numbers, it is 12. You can do this same activity with playing cards. Flip 2 cards over to give you a two-digit number. The first digit I have flipped over is a 3 and the second is a 4. I'm going to write that number down together. If I can read it, I know that it is 34. I'm going to do it one more time. I'm going to flip over 2 cards, a 2 and a 7. I'm going to write that number down and then practice saying it. 27. The next activity you could do is based off a hundreds chart. Draw one long rectangle down and one long rectangle overlapping it across. Make sure there is one square in the middle. Have an older sibling or an adult write a two-digit number in the middle of your cross. The purpose of this activity is to fill in the remaining squares as they would appear on a hundreds chart. Depending on how confident you are, you could use a hundreds chart to help you fill in those squares. This next activity could again be done with or without a hundreds chart. I have drawn some rough tens frames. Depending on how many you want to do, I just did 3 for the purpose of this exercise. Then have an adult or older sibling correctly fill in the hundreds chart with random numbers. So I have chosen to fill in mine randomly with 20s numbers, then some 30s numbers, and then I will follow on with some 40s numbers. The next step is to have the student then go back through and fill in the remaining squares.
Alright guys, that concludes today's math lesson. Were you successful? Did you meet that success criteria? Are you now able to identify and read two-digit numbers? If not, keep practicing, I'm sure you'll get there soon. Until next time!